My name is Jacob Lieberman, and thank you so much for watching my Capstone presentation. I decided to do my Capstone presentation over the entanglement of ADHD in student life. This is a highly personable project for me, as I do have ADHD, and I wanted to see how my fellow peers navigated through the college experience with their ADHD. I interviewed 6 different people about their experiences with medicine, academics, independent living, campus support systems, and their social life. And the main themes that we explored are the medical, academic, personal journeys, and experiences that these students had. Before we can talk about the interviews, we must talk more about the research that I did before. The impact of ADHD in college experience, first of all, is mixed, but it's not neutral. I have 2 different pieces of evidence right here that show the different positive and negative experiences that students could go through with ADHD. For example, in the Carroll evidence, greater resiliency, adaptability under challenging circumstances compared to students with ADHD relative to their peers without ADHD. However, this can be a double-edged sword, as the DuPaul evidence says that college students with ADHD obtained significantly lower GPAs and reported less frequent use of study skill strategies. These can happen at the same time as well. You can be doing good in college and you can have great resiliency but still have a low GPA. If they're not mutually exclusive, which can be frustrating to some students in college. The next big theme I want to discuss is the use of the Disability Center. In my interviews, every single person that I talked to reported that the Disability Center is inefficient and basically useless. Inefficiency is the biggest reason why the Disability Center is failing. This inefficiency can come in many different ways, such as long turnaround times for initial accommodations, the lack of general services provided for students, and students worried about being outed for using a disability center. Many students don't care if people know they have ADHD, but will care if they use the disability center. It is a stigma that arises. Family is a big source of help for people with ADHD, something that was reaffirmed during my interviews, and the transition between the levels of high school and college can be difficult for these students who relied on their family support systems for their ADHD. Now that they're on their own, they have to adapt and figure out all of the things that their parents were doing for them to do for themselves. Besides the Disability Center, there is no other form of support systems for ADHD. At Mizzou, if you are a good test taker and you have good notes, there is no services that the Disability Center can offer you. Furthermore, people who have ADHD most often know very minimal about their disorder. With proper psychoeducation, like the Her Tongue 2022 study gave, students can learn about their ADHD and create management systems for themselves outside of the Disability Center. Moving on to one of the biggest phenomena that I experienced with my project, and that's gender-based disparities with ADHD diagnosis. Men and women get diagnosed with ADHD at very different and alarming rates. I found that the average is that men get diagnosed with ADHD 4 years earlier compared to their women counterparts. And I found that in my personal interviews, that disparity jumped all the way up to 10 years between men and women getting diagnosed with ADHD. I want to read this quote verbatim to you because it shows how important it is to understand the reason why women are being diagnosed less and less often. Women and girls are encouraged to display feminine behaviors and traits such as empathy, good relationships with others, organization, and obedience. When girls display behaviors consistent with ADHD symptoms, examples include impulsivity, hyperactivity, and disorganization, they are at higher risk for social judgments for violation of feminine norms. To avoid social sanctions, many girls with ADHD exert considerable efforts to mask symptoms of ADHD. This masking is what causes the disparity between men and women to get diagnosed. And we need to come up with a safe place for women to be able to unmask themselves and get the help they need, whether that be psychoeducational, medicine, or both. Moving on, ADHD is an active hindrance. Sometimes ADHD can actively hinder progress. Many students, including those who don't have ADHD, report some level of procrastinations. However, some students with ADHD experience maladaptive motivation, or motivation that can actively hinder progress on things that you should be doing or completing. This can include substance use, extreme active procrastination, and attempting to extremely master ADHD in your own behavior. Moving on to my methods. For my project, I combined snowball sampling with in-class plugs to plug my project. I received 2 people from the plugs and the rest through snowball sampling from the people I knew with ADHD. The challenging part of my project was the restrictions I put on, saying that people only who have a medical diagnosis with ADHD should apply to my study. I'm sure I could have gotten more people if I loosened the wording on that, saying that if you are pretty sure you have ADHD, but that's not the type of students I wanted. I really wanted to understand what the real experience of real ADHD was like with my students. Moving on to the specifics, there were no differences between quality of interview and gender, and I had an even split of men and women for my interview. Grade level had the most impact of the quality of the interview, with my better interviews coming from my upperclassmen. Finally, I interviewed people from 3 different colleges, which gave me insight on the various schools' disability centers. Moving on to my key themes, I have 4 of them. Medicine, which is just about the medical journey my interviewees took to get to where they are regarding their medical use. Self-management, or the ability for people with ADHD to manage their own disability by themselves with resources like calendars, routines, etc. Academics, where students describe their experiences navigating through college with ADHD and how it puts positive and negative experiences into their college career. And the Disability Center as a whole, and how my interviewees view their respective systems. Moving on to the coding part of the project, here's a bunch of different quotes with a bunch of my themes. I will be reading out a couple of these quotes and explaining the significance of them. For the medicine quote, my pediatrician would always say that I had too high a grades and I clearly didn't have ADHD. This reinforces not only the gender divide, but other just general challenges to get diagnosed with ADHD. Like I said earlier, if you're a good test taker and you're a good note taker, people might not think that you have ADHD, even though you are silently struggling with it all the time. Another experience with medicine is that when it's not like a stimulant and it has to build up in your system, it's really hard, because if you forget to take it for an extended period of time, you can't just jump in and start taking it again. This is a very double-edged sword with us folks who have ADHD, because forgetting to take something as simple as medicine is very common. But if you want to get help with the ADHD, you can't forget to take the medicine, because that needs to build up in your system before it's effective. Moving on, I really want to touch base on the age of diagnosis and the gender disparity through my study. I'm going to just read this slide verbatim for you. I have the gender of the person who was responding and the age of the level that they got diagnosed. So, woman, I was 18, woman, I was 18, woman, I was 18. All of these women had to get diagnosed themselves. Only one of these people, which is this person up here, or no, this person right here, talked about how they genuinely believed they had ADHD as a child, but their parents never took them to get diagnosed because they didn't believe them. The rest of these people, no one, not even themselves, believed that they had ADHD. However, compared to my men, 7 or 8, second grade, which is around 9 or 10, 10 or 11, these men were probably not able to sit still in their seats, probably going ballistic in class, and that was the reason why they got diagnosed with ADHD. Not because they were not told the masculine behaviors in the name of femininity. Moving on to academics, someone said, I also like to cope, I also learned to kind of cope with it a little bit better. Now I'm especially in college and like a little more freedom schedule, I just realized that I worked better in the mornings and on weekends. So self-coping strategies really do work, but psychoeducation can teach other coping skills to these students who haven't learned or reflected more about their disability in the past. Moving on to the personal management, someone says, I don't study at home if I can help it. If it's Monday through Friday and I know where I need to be, I know where I need to study. Also, I've learned that I can't do my homework in my bed or in my room. These 2 quotes show that students with ADHD thrive on unique environments to get their stuff done. Someone also says they thrive on routine and they need to be successful, but they have difficulty sticking to their routine. Again, a double-edged sword with ADHD. Moving on to the Disability Center. The burden of signing up for all of that stuff, the Disability Center, is on me. Someone also said that the professors aren't super proactive about it either. I've had issues specifically this semester with a professor who said they would force me to use my accommodations every single time. This means that if this student doesn't want to take their test in a unique area, they're tough out of luck. They have to sign up for the Disability Center, otherwise their professor won't seat them in their class. And another thing with the Disability Center is that you have to sign up X amount of time in advance. It's different at every university that I talk to, but if you forget to set up that meeting time, you're just out of luck. You can't take your exam at the Disability Center. Moving on to the conclusion. ADHD is a highly complicated and very unique disability which affects everyone in very unique and different ways. Even though it is highly individualistic, there are steps that can be taken to help minimize the burden of ADHD. I've come up with 3 good ideas that can offer me and my peers better help with ADHD. The first one, offer psychoeducational modules with the Disability Center. The Hard Tongue Reading was a study where psychoeducation was given to students with ADHD in addition to their medicine, so that they could not only manage their ADHD with medicine, but also self-soothing and coping mechanisms. This study was highly successful, so if Mizzou is serious about helping students with ADHD, they could implement voluntary psychoeducational classes within the Disability Center. Another thing that we can do is integrate technology that already exists, for example, the Rory AI text message system with Canvas. If the university can create a bot that sends everyone else individual messages and can respond to them, what's stopping them from creating a bot that can view your Canvas calendar and send you texts about upcoming assignments? ADHD support works best when you're implementing it with something that students are already using daily, and their cell phones are the #1 items that we use on a daily basis. Finally, I would like to offer a bridge between high school and college where students can not only sign up with the Disability Center with assistance from high school counselors and support, but be ready to use their accommodations on day 1 here at Mizzou. Otherwise, students are just stuck in an arbitrary cycle of trying to register with the Disability Center and oftentimes failing and not going through with some Disability Center use that they might actively need. Overall, ADHD is a very highly unique and individualistic trait that people have. And there are ways to manage college with it. However, it requires a lot of proactive work, which I've discovered in my studies here. Thank you so much for watching my Capstone presentation. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments or email me back. Another part of my presentation is, since I'm obviously doing my presentation over video, I can't answer questions to you directly. So I would still love to answer questions for you. So like I said, email me or leave comments down below and I will respond to them. Thank you so much for watching my Capstone presentation.